So, welcome back. I've been recently cross-referencing the Epstein files against the Epstein Steve Bannon interview from 2019, and I came across some very amazing and fascinating revelations. Nothing to do with all the sex stuff, but I think he actually did accomplish something else that not enough people are giving enough credence to. He spoke about the scientists that were involved in the Manhattan Project, that when the Soviet Union went solvent, there was no need for the Manhattan Project anymore, and they weren't developing bombs in New Mexico. So those scientists were going to be out of work. So he bought the ranch in New Mexico because it was in close proximity to the Los Alamos base where they were working on the Manhattan Project. He brought those scientists from the Manhattan Project, and he recruited them to come live on his ranch where he had the silo to work on mathematical research and equations on futures predictions. And he was looking for patterns by using numbers. But he said he spent 15 years doing it. He never said if that research was a failure or not. But then we find out in these files that there was a time where about 15 years after he bought the ranch in 93, 15 years later, 2000, in the 2000s, he won the Powerball in New Mexico, not once, but twice. So for many people, you might think that maybe the local government was in on it, but what if they weren't? What if this was a part of what he was researching, and he wanted to prove that his research and what their discovery was correct, so he was able to win the Powerball twice? That right there would show that he knows what he's talking about. And then guess what? No wonder he was one of the most sought after men to help crunch numbers and help people figure out their financial systems all over the world, because he was able to prove that his research yielded results. Let's go ahead and take a listen. This is Melanie King. She's going over how he won the Powerball. Then we're going to go over to the Steve Bannon interview, and we're going to take a look together. 1 second.
And we see what's going on now, the redactions, all of this that's going on. No one's really going to jail. No one's facing any consequences at all here. Like, you really believe that this man decided to delete himself because what? Because I want to take you back to this. On his first conviction, listen to this carefully. We already talked about him winning the Powerball, right? And it going to his trust. But the detail.
What's 8 plus 3? I mean, what's 8 plus 7? 15. He bought the ranch in 93, and he said they did the research for 15 years. That would have put us in 2008. Right in the middle of the financial crash. And he won the Powerball. This is insane.
This shows you we are working, like the entire government, everything is working to protect these pedophiles. So it says, did Jeffrey Epstein win the Oklahoma Powerball lottery July 2nd, 2008? There was also a computer malfunction that preempted the television broadcast of the Sunday draw. And instead, the drawing was held later and monitored by an auditing firm. Trusts shield the winner or winners from public scrutiny. We were hopeful that we could come in, but as time passed, we know they were going to form a trust, Finks said. Instead, the July 2nd ticket of $29.3 million was paid out to a mysterious financial planning company, Zorro Trust. Coincidentally, on July 1st, 2008, Epstein also started to serve his 18-month jail term in Florida as inmate number W35755. So understand what this is saying, right? Okay. Guys, he essentially was paid to go to jail, to take the fall, to take those years. And then we saw after this that he was working with Bill Gates, working with everyone. Everyone was working with him, going to his island. Just everything after that point, even though he was a convicted sex offender. And then I want you to say the odds of him winning that lottery the day, look at this. I want to say this again. Okay. So on July 2nd, the ticket was paid out for 29.3 million, and he started serving his sentence on July 1st. So when he showed up to jail, reported to jail, went to jail, right? Went to prison. Well, then the next day, he wins the Powerball and gets nearly $30 million into Zorro Trust, because Zorro Ranch is the ranch that he has in New Mexico.
Now, it seems what people are leading on is that maybe he was paid to go down. He was paid to take this sentence, and they funneled the money to him through the lottery. That would be from the top down. I mean, the amount of corruption to not have one whistleblower come out and expose this. I mean, it would be, I mean, I don't know what the odds of that being able to pull something like that are, to pull that off. But if you compare what she just said about winning the Powerball, now allegedly he won the Powerball twice, but she's only bringing up one time. But now let's fast forward to when he explains why he bought Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And let's take a listen to what he says.
So why did I buy a ranch in New Mexico in 1993? So that gives you some sense. So I would have funded it in 1990. Los Alamos, which was the high energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
And Alamos, it was where Oppenheimer and where a lot of the nuclear weapons for the bomb.
That's where the Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project was as Los Alamos, and you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were going to they cut the funding for high energy physics. But the people who worked in Los Alamos would still be in the Santa Fe area.
They cut that because this was the Cold War dividend, right?
I don't remember exactly why. It was because, again, people thought that physics and high energy physics really wasn't that important.
Because that was about nuclear weapons.
No, it was because they decided it was maybe not right. This was the same time that Murray Gell-Mann came up with the term quark, Q-U-A-R-K.
Do you see how highly intelligent this man is? He literally just name dropped somebody who came up with the word quark. And I believe quark is a measurement of something that is so minuscule and minute that they had to develop a new word for it. I believe that's what a quark is. Let's give me a second.
He picked it out of an old poem, the word quark, but it was something, it was mysterious. So they were starting to understand in the 90s that our world of the physics world, there was things that were just unexplainable. They called it strange things. You gave it a name. You gave it some characteristics. You called it had charm, was one of the terms. It had a charm. It had a flavor. It had a color. But no one, Mr. Bannon, understood what it was. Just like the financial system.
And you wanted to investigate that?
I wanted to see if we could build tools so others smarter than me could help investigate it.
And that was the beginning of your concept of the Santa Fe Institute?
Yes.
And Santa Fe Institute was founded to do study in this type of...
Can these areas of strange things be described by some form of mathematics?
So that's what I'm trying to get at. The foundational thought, the organizing principle of Santa Fe, yes, in the high physics lab at Los Alamos, right, which had been the headquarters of Manhattan, and the Trinity Project, right, the bomb.
Yes.
So you're talking about the elite, the high priest
of physics.
Of physics.
Yes, sir.
Which high priest of physics, some subset of that is also mathematics.
Yes, they're both similar.
So basically, he wanted to use mathematics and combine it with physics to study unexplained and uncharted phenomena that we barely have words for, that explains things that are happening that we don't understand how it's processed. But that would also explain time and time dilation. That would also explain being able to time travel or go forward in the future or into the past. This reminds me somewhat of looking glass technology that was all theorized, and there's movies about it. Denzel Washington has a famous movie about it. It seems like a lot of these theories there was one man who actually was funding the research specifically into these different realms of the unknown, and that was Mr. Epstein. But all everyone wants to talk about is sex with kids. But the man is literally behind exploring some of the strangest phenomena by using mathematics and high energy physics. He literally recruited hundreds of scientists who were working on the Manhattan Project. He is, as far as we know, just a civilian. A civilian with what kind of clearance do you have where you can build a bunker that's 10 stories deep in proximities to a Los Alamos base in New Mexico, and you can recruit the scientists to come work for you to study the unknown by using mathematics and physics? What type? There's way too much missing about Epstein for us to only be talking about the stuff with the kids. And I don't even know why. These same people that are talking about, oh my God, all the stuff with the kids, literally they pass laws to protect men who hunt down and molest kids. They passed laws for that in California years ago. If you're upset about the Epstein files, why don't you want to see Gavin Newsom prosecuted for allowing these laws to pass, or Scott Wiener for actually writing these legislation that decriminalize getting caught having sex with kids, sodomy? All those things are now legal, decriminalized in California. Been like that since 2019. No one's calling for Gavin Newsom or Scott Wiener, but everyone's so concerned about the Epstein files. But why do you not care? That's actual law on the books. You don't care about that, but you pretend that you care because of the Epstein files. It's not consistent. It just doesn't make sense. And it just seems like everything's trying to take your attention away from the science behind what this man was talking about. Very strange, but let's continue.
Project out. One of the tools you want to do is to make sure that in this complex system, the finance system, I'm doing a lot of this for philanthropy and a lot for the good of mankind, but also to be able to understand this complex system, the most complex outside of maybe our body, of the financial world.
Yes.
Did they create tools, or were you smarter in than the mid-aughts 15 years later than you had been then because of the work that was done at Santa Fe?
No, it was great. But in fact, most of the money, most of my philanthropy in the area of, can you describe things that appear to be unexplainable by mathematics? And can you fund people who have new ideas? And unfortunately, when someone thinks they've been able to, there was a man, Stuart Kaufman, when they think I figured out how to be able to predict the unpredictable, what appears to other people to be unpredictable. But
like the lotto? Is that what he's referring to? To be able to predict the unpredictable? Wouldn't that mean that he was able, that wouldn't that kind of give a little bit of explanation to how 15 years later, he just said the number 15, he was able to predict the lottery numbers, not once, but twice, and win the Powerball 2 different times? He just said we're looking to explain what might appear to be unpredictable and unexplainable. I don't know how everyone's not catching on what I'm saying here.
My system, in those days it was called genetic algorithms, can predict what things will happen. And
he just said my genetic algorithms can predict and he stopped himself. What if we're stumbling onto something right now, which is one of the biggest things that everyone's trying to cover up? Let's ask Arthur. Arthur, can you explain to us the theory of the looking glass technology?
The looking glass theory typically pops up in speculative or fringe discussions. In essence, it's alleged technology that conspiracy theorists claim could allow governments or secretive groups to view future events or alternate timelines. There's no credible evidence it exists. It's more science fiction than science fact. Often it's used as a narrative device or part of an online myth. not anything grounded in real world physics or technology.
Nothing that we know of. Thank you, Arthur. So just for all you guys who don't understand, that's what looking glass technology is. It says that they have looking glass technology in Israel, which is why when you were seeing the spikes in certain people's names before certain events happen, you saw the spikes happen in Israel first, then DC. Why was Israel looking up the name of the guy who assassinated Charlie Kirk, or the school where it happened at, or his boy Tyler Robinson? These were all searches in the week before Kirk was assassinated. It's not just when Charlie Kirk died. There have been other events that have happened that made world news. And when they look up a Google search to see who was looking for these terms and when, it turns out in Israel and in DC, they were searching up the names of these people who were not famous until these events happened weeks before. What he is describing is using mathematics and high energy physics to predict the future, to see into the future. What is looking glass technology? Is when governments develop tools where they were able to view the future. It's like you have to read between the lines, what he's saying and what he can't say. Let's listen to Epstein a little bit further, because to me, this is bigger than all the kid stuff. This is an economics lesson, but everybody keeps trying to tell me to think about porn. I don't want to hear about the porn. I want to hear about the physics. I'm interested in the science. I don't want to hear about the other stuff. Yeah, you corrupted all these politicians. Okay, people are creeps. In California, they protect pedophiles. They literally have laws where you don't got to even register as a sex offender anymore. Okay, no one gives a shit there. So I don't buy the fake outrage, because no one's calling for Gavin Newsom's head on a stick. No one's calling for Scott Wiener to be arrested. So I don't want to hear about it until you're already ready to go after the people in California who pass literal bills and laws to protect pedophiles. I don't want to hear about your fake outrage about Epstein. Now let's get back to the science.
15 years later than you had been then because of work that was done at Santa Fe.
No, it was great. But in fact, most of the money, most of my philanthropy in the area of, can you describe things that appear to be unexplainable by mathematics? And can you fund people who have new ideas? And unfortunately, when someone thinks they've been able to, there was a man, Stuart Kaufman, when they think I figured out how to be able to predict the unpredictable, what appears to other people to be unpredictable. But my system, in those days it was called genetic algorithms, can predict what things will happen. And
my system, back then it was called genetic algorithms. My system could predict okay, so 15 years ago, you used to call it a genetic algorithm. What is it called today? What if it's called looking glass tech? What if they call it looking glass now? In its inception, when it was just an idea before they actually started doing the research and the experiments, it was called a genetic algorithm. I mean, just those two words were not typically known to go together. We know an algorithm as if, if you're looking for certain keywords and you're typing them in and you're looking for certain sequences, and there's an algorithm that's showing you certain images and pictures on your timeline. It's kind of like a coordinated a view of certain topics, or it's like they're trying to tell you a story. A lot of us have our own algorithm, and you're always wondering, why is my algorithm showing me this? What did I type in? What did I say? But when you put the word genetic algorithm, well, that changes everything. Now you're saying that there's a pattern in the gene sequences of what people, of products. Are you saying that everything has a gene sequence? What are we saying here? And that's what I mean. There are so many questions that are not being asked, so we're not going to have the right answers. But we need to look into this. What if a genetic algorithm was the old name and the new name is looking glass technology? And looking glass is how he was able to generate wealth by winning lotteries and looking at the stock market. Remember, he was trying to find a way to use mathematics and high energy physics to predict the stock markets, because like he said, it's unpredictable, because it's more so not like a machine, but it's more so like the human body. So it's unpredictable, but he was trying to find a way to predict the unpredictable. And that's why maybe people from all over the world was begging for his expertise, because they wanted to get in on money. And if you think about what else reminds me of a genetic algorithm, yeah, Looking Glass could be one thing, but also another thing that reminds me of genetic algorithm, how in its complexity, is Bitcoin. No one understands it, and we think the name of the guy who invented it is some obscure person in Japan that may or may not have ever existed. But now it's coming out that Epstein, the odds are higher that Epstein was the father of Bitcoin as well. And that's why that one man said, if you ever found out who was behind Bitcoin, the value would drop to zero. Now that it's coming out that Epstein is behind Bitcoin, it's been crashing. What is it, 60 something thousand now, down from 130? These are all things that I had to bring up and talk to you about because everyone else is missing it.
They all want to make money. So they use their systems to try to figure out, they know they have figured out the way to make money because they figured out the unexplainable. They try, they go bankrupt, and we start again. So with a cold view, what I've come to realize is that the attempt to mathematize, formularize, or what in your prior work, to understand what really is, in today's world, still unexplainable, is impossible. They're miracles.
Your first head of Santa Fe was Christopher
Langdon, I think.
Langdon from
But
Australia.
Murray Gell-Mann was
the
the funder. He was the rock.
Yes, he was the rock. He was a Nobel Prize winner.
Yes.
Yes, and a wonderful guy. He came out and helped us with the Bias for Two project. He came with Chris Langdon.
Yeah.
Chris Langdon was the operator, the day-to-day.
Chris was doing artificial life.
Right.
Murray tried to lead his own artificial life.
Yeah.
Artificial life. Do you know what year the Santa Fe project was? It began in 1993. They were looking at artificial life, artificial intelligence, genetic algorithms, trying to use mathematics and high energy physics to predict the future using the scientists that were working on the fucking Manhattan Project. And that's the reason why he bought the ranch in New Mexico, is because he knew all the scientists were being laid off from the Manhattan Project in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and they were living in the Santa Fe area. So it was easier to recruit. Instead of them having to move back to wherever they're from, he could just recruit from the pool of the best talent in the world. Manhattan Project scientists, some of them came from Germany. Some of them came from Austria. A lot of these were Europeans. They weren't just Americans. The Manhattan Project was basically like a global collective to try to find ways to counter whatever the Soviets were building. And even today, not all of that information is disclosed. What kind of clearance how did Jeffrey Epstein, as a civilian, how was he able to even contact and deal with these scientists and have enough clearance to recruit them to come work for him, and the government just allowed it to happen? There's so much more to Epstein than a bunch of just sex with kids and eating children. And I'll be honest, that stuff sounds horrible until you start thinking about everything that David Icke's been telling us for, 30 years now? That there's another species of human that live here on Earth. We're the majority, humans like you and I, but then there's another minority of people. They look like us, but they're different. They have reptilian DNA, and they can actually eat human flesh and drink human blood and not be sick. They appear to look like us, but because our eyes can only see a very narrow band of light on the spectrum, there could be more around us, but our eyes just cannot see it. We don't really know what's going on. We don't really understand everything that's going on in the physical world around us. We can only see a very narrow band of light on the spectrum. There's a lot that we cannot see. So when they're telling you that these people are eating other humans, but you got to think about it, it's not really cannibalism if they're not humans themselves. And they seem to always be a part of a network with each other. If you read the old books, that are the old historical books, the Bibles, they say that all of our original royal families were seeded by reptilians. and they were hybrids of reptilians and humans. But because they were hybrids, they were able to communicate with the reptilians and they were able to communicate with the humans. They had certain types of DNA, and they didn't want to dilute their DNA by breeding with us humans, because then they might lose their ability to speak with the reptilians. So that's why they did so much inbreeding. But the inbreeding caused a lot of genetic issues. And they would, you know, a lot of them historically were, if they got a cut, their blood wouldn't clot. And they would have other genetic abnormalities, and they would have a lot of genetic issues. They looked a certain way. If you look at the Rockefellers or any of these older families, you could tell there was a lot of inbreeding, to say the least. Some of them would come out normal, but the rest of them would be, you could tell they were products of obviously genetic mixing with their own relatives. But they didn't do that just because they were just, you know, a bunch of inbred sickos. It was because they wanted to keep their bloodline pure so that they can continue to communicate with apparently the reptilians who sat them. Let's go back to the stories of old. There was always a castle, and then there were the humans that lived down in the valley, and then there was a big castle on the hill where all the gold and all the wealth was. I'll give you an example, the movie Beauty and the Beast. That story is told in every country, in every language, all over the world. There was always villagers of humans, and then there was always a monster that lived in the castle. But why did the villagers live in straw huts? But this beast lived in a castle. Where did they get the money to build the castle? Who built the castle? Why did they have such prominence in a huge castle with gates and gold, and you're just down there, a poor villager? Fast forward to 2026, we're just still in the village, and the beasts live in their castles, their compounds. We don't know them in public. We don't see them in public. They don't breed with us. But now we're reading these stories that, just like the beasts from those stories long ago, where they would come and they would kidnap kids at nighttime, and then eventually the villagers would, pick up pikes and set torches on fire, and they would storm the castle. Because the beast that was kidnapping and killing their kids, that's where he lived. Just like in the story Beauty and the Beast and the other stories of Dracula and Vlad the Impaler, it's told in 1,000 stories in 1,000 countries over 1,000 years. The same story. And it's 2026, and we're still just the villagers running up to the castles, trying to pull our children away from the beasts. Back then, the beasts and Vlad and these other vampires and these other adjacent humans, they would consume people. They preferred children. And in 2026, we're reading through the Epstein files, and what are they telling us they like to do? They like their beef jerky to walk. And they're not talking about cows. They're talking about kids. There's nothing new under the sun. We're reliving all the stories of old. And it's happening right in front of us. We're asking the wrong questions. We need to know how many of these non-humans live amongst us and appear to be human. We don't know. We know they're the wealthiest. We know they call them elites, but we need to come up with another name. They're not elite because they were just smarter or better or more agile, or they were, just more successful. They worked harder. That would mean you're an elite. These people are, it's nepotism because their bloodline is kept a certain way because they're not human. And if they mix with humans too much, then now you would become more human. So they have to stay amongst each other. And it's like they're all a part of a group, a minority, and they're all sticking together. I don't think they're human. They're consuming humans and they're not getting sick and dying. So they're not even cannibals. We could call them monsters. I wouldn't call them vampires, but I mean, I doubt they turn into bats, but what if those stories were true? I mean, our whole lives we were told about vampires, we were told about dragons, but now people want to tell you, well, there's no such thing as vampires, but there are these rich people that eat humans. And instead of dragons, we want you to believe in dinosaurs. And it's like, what? You're just renaming the same things. Again, there's nothing new under the sun. This man is way more than just a regular Jewish guy from New York, from Coney Island. And Bannon knows it. He knows we know it. there's so much we don't know about Epstein. He's giving us his origin story, but barely at the age of 30, he was on the Trilateral Commission. How? How can somebody even determine you by that age have a knack for mathematics and finances? How can somebody think that you're just a genius with money? You're only 30. You don't even have you don't have enough time to get the results. They said he was a teacher. There's so much we're learning so fast. I'm surprised they haven't crashed the internet yet. I'm surprised they haven't detonated something to distract us from all of this, or just wiped us all the way back to the Stone Age by hitting the grid. Because it's stuff like this that makes certain people say, you know what, hit the switch. Hit the switch. It's over. Reset everything. There's no way these people can find out we exist. Because that's where this is leading. We're about 2 weeks away from this, where people are going to say, well, what kind of people can eat other people and survive? As a matter of fact, how is it that there's so many cannibals until you have to realize that they're not cannibals? In every species of animal on Earth, there's about at least 5 different varieties. I know when it comes to termites, there's like 2,700 varieties of termites. They're from the same group, but different phylums. They're same, but different. But we're just brainwashed to believe that there's just only one type of human. Sure, we're in different heights, different sizes, different colors, but we're all just a part of one phylum of human. There's no other types of humans at all. And no one even pontificates or asks those questions. What if there are people that can breathe better underwater, or people that can eat human flesh, or people that can do other things that other humans cannot do? You're literally hearing stories about, they said that Jeffrey Epstein was going to go back to eating normal food pretty soon. But for a long period of time, he was only eating jerky, which was children, according to what we're all pontificating about, what we found in the files. What kind of person can just eat kids for years, and going back to eating regular food is a change in their diet? What type of human can do that and survive and not have all types of sicknesses and blood and diseases and different, flesh eating diseases? There's, what is it called? I forgot. I draw a blank. Hey, Arthur, what's the name of the disease that you can get from drinking human blood and eating human flesh? What's that disease called?
The disease is called Kuru, and it's associated with prion infections, similar to what you see in Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Historically, it occurred in certain cultures where ritualistic cannibalism was practiced. It causes severe neurological degeneration.
But it does that if you're a human, right?
Yes, that's correct. Kuru and prion diseases in general affect humans. They result from misfolded proteins causing neurodegeneration. In humans, consuming human nervous tissue, like in cannibalism, can transmit these prions. It doesn't affect other species in the same way.
Thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear, Arthur. You heard what he said. It doesn't affect other species in the same way. Just because you look human doesn't mean you're a human. If there are people that are able to eat humans' flesh and drink our blood, and they don't develop Kuru and prion infections, they're not humans. They look human, smell human, they act human, but they're not. And we're fooled, because what if they're the ones in prominence? What if they're the ones historically that have, because they had money and financing from other older non-humans, they were able to win the favor of politics. They were able to become kings, and they were able to send other regular humans who are basically just peons, the rest of us peasants, the villagers, for fun. They would just send us to war against each other and let us kill each other off while they stayed in their castles and laugh. I notice all of these politicians that call for war in Russia, none of them are ever putting their kids on the front lines. They just send us. People look at me crazy when I say that there's other species of human and we all kind of live amongst each other. But then, do we really live amongst each other? I've never been out at a restaurant and seen Bill Gates and all these other rich super people that we don't know much. I've never seen the royals sitting right across from. They're not around us. They don't come around the villagers. because there's something about those people that we don't trust. We can tell that there's something different about them, which is why we eventually would storm the castles. We didn't have video technology back then, but we knew that in the night when our livestock were being killed and our children were coming up missing, we knew they were being dragged away to the castles. And we have been storming these castles for thousands of years, and we're still storming the castles thousands of years later, trying to find those that are eating our children. We're going to go back to a little bit more of what Epstein had to say, but this was a very, very important video. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I had one of my largest lives the other morning. It was 25,000 people on live. We're doing good numbers today, but I want you guys to be able to stay in touch and watch my other content. I make a lot of it. I'm new. I'm barely monetized on here, but these are all my new channels. So I appreciate you all for tuning in. You can become a member if you want to. You can do a super chat. I'm going to read those at the end. I appreciate the comments. We're going to talk about this some more. I just wanted you guys to understand that this Epstein stuff is bigger than the kids and sex stuff. It's not just about eating kids. It explains not just transhumanism, but other species of human, but also the technology that he used to generate with these scientists from all over the world. These scientists also helped him come up with Bitcoin, but they also helped him come up with the vaccine. The only thing he needed to do for the pandemic was be able to corrupt and pay off the politicians. But you're going to need scientists for the vaccine. But the media and the politician is all you need to have a fake pandemic. But the injection was real. And they did the math and they did the numbers and they knew who they were targeting with the injection. And it was very successful so far. So if the number was to get down the population of the herd of the lower the population of the villagers, it's definitely working. I think Epstein is still alive, in my opinion, but let's watch a little bit more.
Advisor too for the first big conference we had in 1994. He was one of the most impressive guys there among all the world's elite. Kew Gardens, the Lawrence Livermore lab, the labs at Sandia, all the major universities, Lamont Doherty, all the big Earth observatories, Woods Hole. What set Langdon apart, I thought, and the reason I invited Santa Fe to be part of it, was Langdon actually made a presentation that everything, and he was making this to scientists, a lot of marine biologists, a lot of people that are just beginning, Wally Broker and people who were just beginning the study of climate change, at that time called global warming, that he made this compelling presentation that everything's really mathematics. Yes. It's all just back to math. And you have to, all these experiments you do, you're not, one of the reasons they're not considered by the high priests in physics as being real experiments is that they don't have a mathematical basis to it, and everything has a mathematical basis to it. Langdon seemed like a radical visionary. What happened to that concept?
You go back 350 years. So you have Isaac Newton, you have Leibniz. From move forward, you have people like Heisenberg and Gödel, and what every one of those mathematicians and philosophers came to understand is that there's numbers can describe certain things, approximate certain things. But in fact, trying to put measurements and numbers on other things that are really unexplainable is folly.
You know, he talks about Newton and Pythagoras and Schroeder. The way he talks about what they were doing and how they looked at numbers and what their experiments were, he speaks about these men from hundreds of years ago as if he knew them. He speaks to them as if he was there himself. He speaks about, because think about it, all we know is what was written down, third, fourth, fifth, 100th hand accounts of what this man was trying to tell us with his limited scope of information at the time. But the way Epstein describes these conversations and how he is able to correct Bannon, who is hostile in this interview, it just seems like Epstein was there. What if these people are? What if some of them are older? We don't know them as children. We don't know anything about them. We know reptiles, they shed their skin and they grow a new set, and then, and they move on. These stories that David Icke has been telling us for all these years, he's not the only one who's ever told us. Read his book, The Moon Matrix. A lot of this stuff people have been reporting on for years. No one just took it seriously. They would make movies about it and put it in your face, so that way you'll think it was a joke. But what if it's real? And what if that's where this disclosure is going to lead us faster than any of us can predict? What if, every day we're waking up to new things that people are finding in these emails. I'm seeing way too many accounts of cannibalism, but I don't see any accounts of prion disease or Kuru. If these are just regular people, like you're saying in the chat, they're not other species. They're just powerful people. So you mean to tell me there's a certain amount of money that I can make that means that I can eat human flesh and drink human blood and not get prion infections or Kuru? I don't think there's a dollar amount that can predict that, my friend. I think that you're wrong. I think that a lot of us are wrong. I think that we're afraid. I used to tell people that the vaccine was fake. There is no virus. And the people that used to argue with me until it came out that everything I said was true were the people that took the vaccine, and they were afraid to face the reality of, well, what if I'm wrong? And when I tell people that what if there are other people that are humans around us that are not humans, that are another species that appear to be human, but they're not, that's a scary thought, because you start to wonder about the people that have been telling us to do things all these years. What if they weren't humans, and that's why they had no problem sending us to death or coming up with deadly vaccines that would kill our children, or experimental medical procedures that they would perform on humans, and different things, different atrocities over the years? What if they were just the people in the castle? You never see what the people in the castle look like. We know what the villagers look like, and we would storm the castle, but the description used to vary of who lived inside. Sometimes it would be an ogre or a beast or a vampire or some kind of other monster. There are reports of shapeshifters or those who just looked like the villagers. And that's how they were able to hide amongst us so that we wouldn't hunt them. We don't understand how humans work. We're a mob mentality. Just look at the Salem witch trials. Those people tried to live amongst the humans. Now they had to learn the hard way why they used to be tucked away in castles back in Europe before they came to the colonies. Again, we're still storming the castles and trying to figure out which way is up. You think you know everything, you know nothing. The science is not settled. We don't know a tenth of everything that we claim that we know for sure. We don't know how many species of human there actually are. But I think we're going to find out if we keep looking, if we keep reading.
It's so 300 years ago, they said that unexplainable realm was God. And people who attempted, in fact, to explain the unexplainable, who said, yes, I understand the unexplainable, were charlatans. They were the occults. They were the astrologers. They were the con men.
Alchemists.
Yes. Well, no, alchemists was, in fact, they believed that there was a way to transmute one metal into another. In fact,
he is literally correcting the fuck out of Steve Bannon, and people aren't catching this. It would have been easy for him to just say, yeah, because when Bannon threw out the word alchemist, he could have just said, yeah, like, the con man, the alchemist. He could have just went along with it. He said, no, actually, the alchemists were trying to prove that you can transform one sort of metal into another to get rich. So you can take steel, you can add some neutrons to it, and then it's missing 2 parts neutron to become gold. And now, boom, you're rich. He corrected the hell out of Steve Bannon. This man is obviously mentally operating on a separate plane. It's as if he was there 300 years ago. He doesn't sound like the rest of us. He doesn't sound like the rest of you. But let's continue.
They wanted to see if they can create gold. There's no reason, if you think about it, they recognize that one metal is different than another metal because it has some additional pieces to it. It has additional neutrons or protons or electrons. So because they thought it was a machine, they believed it was a machine, if I can take
Exactly. The 13 bloodlines all were in positions of being the royalty monarchs around the world, even in ancient China. And they were all seated by serpents, by lizards, by dragons. They were all put into power, according to our history books, according to lore, by these reptilians who did what? They consumed humans and children. The stories are the same. These are not new stories. These are the old stories you just don't remember, but these are the stories we grew up reading about and watching. All this new stuff where it washes over it, we've been talking about these stories, we've been telling these stories for thousands of years of these creatures that eat people. And you don't want to believe that there are people that eat people that deal with these other people, then you're insane. That's why you don't want to listen. You don't want to read these files. And what I mean, you're trying to figure out what they're saying. You should probably just take these people for their word, which is verbatim. Yeah, you're using code and they're calling it jerky and pizza, and but it is leading back to they're eating humans. But they're not. But that would be cannibalism, and they would be sick and die. They're not humans. They're not the same species of human that we are. We're all from Earth, just different species. You might want to consider that.
5 protons and add 5, that gives me 10. I should be able to get gold. Move everything around inside these systems. The molecules transmute.
By the way, he's destroying Steve Bannon mentally. Bannon, his brain right now is on the verge of an aneurysm. Probably his nose is bleeding. This is way more than he bargained for. He had no clue that Epstein was operating on this level of intellect compared to a regular human. The man sounds like an AI himself. And he already said that he doesn't understand how AIs work. The people who created AI doesn't understand how it works. And this is in 2019. There's more than this. There's more to this. There's more that's going on here. So I'm going to point it out.
One molecule into another. And if this molecule I've transmuted it into is gold, I'm a rich man. It's back to money. But there's something strange happens. Isaac Newton says, this is really weird. If I want to push a ball on the table, I have to touch it.
You know what? Over Unity, I think that you're correct. I think he is the linchpin. He is the convergence of every grand conspiracy theory or thought or any. He's the convergence of everything into one person personified. In some terms, you might even call him Neo. I've never seen one man in so many different places at one time, and he means so much to so many different people. And the villagers, the majority of us, look at him like he's a monster. But yet the people on the other side who he works with, they look at him as a savant, a saint. But remember, we're the majority. We're the regular humans. We're the villagers. But the people that live in the castles, they revere him. They don't think he's a terrible person at all. They think he's amazing, think he's brilliant. Why is it that we're all looking at the same man, but we're seeing someone different every time? There's never been anyone as fascinating or interesting as Epstein. Not that I can think of in history. Jesus was the last time there was one person but even during the time of Jesus, he had a lot of enemies. He had 12 friends. And I mean, Epstein is bigger. This is way bigger than that. Let's just listen for a little bit longer.
Maybe I have to blow on it. But I actually have to push one side of the ball or the book.
Yeah, our high-level government officials could all be a part of this separate species. And that's how they were elevated into these positions. And they're kept away from regular humans so that we won't ever figure out that they even exist. And then somebody leaks these files. Basically, we're only getting all this information about Epstein because there was a whistleblower who might be a regular human. It might be one of their own who went AWOL, turned, and now they're putting all this information out there. I just want you guys all to know, yeah, we've been begging for Epstein information and disclosure. I'll tell you the truth. All of this leads to war. That's it. All of this disclosure, if it turns out that we're hunting people that eat other people and they might not be the same species of human, we'll be back to storming these castles with torches once again in a matter of years. All of this leads to war because as humans, we're afraid. We're not going to coexist with another dominant species. The Cro-Magnons didn't do it with the Neanderthals, and modern humans didn't do it with the Cro-Mag. We were not going to cohabitate with another separate species that consumes us for their food. We're just not going to be able to do it. All of this information we're gathering, even if we find out these people have looking glass technology or genetic algorithms where they can predict the future and they kind of know there's going to be certain tragedies and they position themselves in certain positions where they can benefit from these tragedies because the tragedies are going to happen regardless. There's no stopping the future, but you can kind of benefit from it. If that's the case, then why is it that people in Israel are always ahead of us when they know what to look up before these things happen? Apparently, and who did Epstein work for? He was funded, and they actually said he didn't work for Mossad. Mossad worked for him. So we know who's funding him. We know who's behind it. They're always ahead of everyone when it comes to certain tragedies. If he was working on their behest, it would make sense why they have access to the technology even before we had it in our own American government. But they have to share their data with us. So obviously, when they're looking up keywords of names from tragedies, like when Kirk died and they looked up those searches, it was in Israel first. They were looking up the names, then in DC. We're putting all these pieces together. It would make sense that the people that live in the castles would all live in this other country in the Middle East that's guarded by an iron dome. Let's continue.
To move that side. I'm pushing here, and obviously this thing is what appears to us humans to be solid, so it moves as one thing. But the only way to get something to move was to touch it or put a force against it. Okay, seems to make sense. Everybody has that experience. I want to lift a glass, I lift it. If I want to push a ball, I push it. If I want to pull a ball, I pull it. But he recognized when the ball fell off the table, it went in a different direction. How's that possible? Nobody.
Do I believe Epstein is dead? Do I believe Epstein is dead? Absolutely not. See, there are certain people, right, who have a certain level of intellect. It's an advanced survival instinct. Unfortunately, I have it. I shouldn't be here today, but I understand my strong points. But to display my my abilities, that's why I started a channel so I could sit here and talk to people. Everyone can't do it. People who operate on a certain wavelength die. That would be too easy. See, for people, death is simple. It's the easy way out. Nothing comes that easy for people like me. See, life is hard. Figuring out what to do, where to go, how to live, making adjustments, surviving, advancing. That's hard. But see, once you're dead, all your bills stop, all your responsibilities stop. Everything just goes away for you as an individual. So death is easy. The rest of us, if you depending on how you mentally operate, nothing can ever be that simple. Everything is complicated. You got to think about it. You think I'm over analytical now when it comes to these findings in this file. Imagine trying to be in a relationship with me and lie to me. Why do you think I made my girlfriend move out? It's a gift and it's a curse. The good thing is I have you guys, and I can sit here and talk to you, and we can talk to each other. We can find warmth, and we can console one another because we're all going to fit the same mold. We're curious about the world. We figure out that you really can't really resonate with most people because they're on a completely different wavelength. But then you see someone else like Epstein, and he's basically finding other people of like kind, but I think they have more than just their thoughts in common. They have a different physiology, which is why they're all so excited to meet him, because now they found somebody else who knows how to curate the same type of foods they can eat. like they're basically just found other people of a different species that they can get along with. It's just like, say you're used to eating American food and you move to another country and you finally bump into some Americans that know how to cook. You're like, I can't wait to get over there to eat. Sure, you eat the locals' food, but you miss that home cooking, that good stuff that was specifically designed for you, that you grew up on. When I'm listening at how enthusiastic and how excited these people are in these emails just to come to meet Jeffrey Epstein, and go to LSG, Little St. James, or LSJ, Little St. James, these people are beyond excited. They have all the money in the world, but the way they treat this man, you know what? There is another person that's not Jesus who I've seen everybody just oddly and just infatuated with. There's a man named Klaus Schwab. He's the head of the World Economic Forum. That's the only other person that I've seen people who were wealthy, famous, and I've seen them just grovel on their knees and hang on every word out of his mouth. They treat Schwab the way they treat Epstein. I think we have another video coming up, guys. I think I'm going to do the Schwab-Epstein connection. I'm going to talk about, I don't know if you guys ever watched the World Economic Forum videos or you've been studying the Davos, and like I have, but there are some similarities, and I always wonder, why the hell are they so obsessed with Klaus Schwab? So fucking interested about this bald guy who sounds like a Bond villain, who looks like fucking Austin Powers, the guy he played that is not Austin Powers, the bald guy that with Mini-Me. And everyone is just extremely obsessed with him. And when I watch these Epstein files and I'm reading these, they're obsessed with Jeff. I don't even know why Bannon is doing this interview with him. What was Bannon's reason for doing an interview with a man convicted? Yeah, he seems interesting, but how would you know? Why would you care?
Pushed the ball down. And he said, this is crazy. Why did the ball go down? I didn't push it. I just let it go. So someone's pushing the ball, because I know that I am confident that the only thing that gets something to move is with a force that pushes. So there's a force that's pushing the ball down. In fact, he called it gravity. He measured how fast it was pulled, but never was able to explain why it happened. How is it? What is gravity?
The fact that 98% of people alive on Earth think that gravity is real and think that we understand gravity and we can measure it and we've seen gravity and gravity. But this man, Epstein, is literally telling you that there's no such thing as gravity. It doesn't really exist. It was just a word that came up to explain something that we can't really explain and we don't know what it is. That puts him in a completely different ballpark than 98, 99% of living people on Earth right now. People don't know gravity is fake. They doesn't know gravity. Most people don't know. The majority of the world have no idea that gravity doesn't exist. Most people don't know that space is fake and all that's just nonsense. There's no nebulas, there's no quasars, there's no black holes, there's no Mars, there's no Hubble, it's all fake. Even the measurements in astronomical unit and AU, a light year, it's all just fake theoretical bullshit that Gene Roddenberry came up with, and people just kind of incorporated it into a real science that doesn't exist. And it was just another way to scam taxpayers for their money. You got to think about it. NASA to this day still gets $68 million per day. And we have no idea where that money goes. We don't know what it's being spent on. They give us bullshit, low-level, fake CGI images. And they don't even give us that anymore because we have AI that can scan those images and tell you, yeah, this is AI too. So they don't even give us those anymore. They've never showed you the space shuttle docking with a space station. Because it's all fake. It's all fucking fake. But this Epstein stuff we're talking about, this is real. The rest of that is just a distraction so you don't ask questions about this. Listen, I'm going to end this video on him basically saying that no one knows what gravity is because it's not a real thing. We're going to pick back up in about 30 minutes. We're going to do some more lives. I have like 5, 6 topics to go over tonight, and each one's going to have its own separate live. So do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. We're going to come back here and have some more in-depth discussions about different topics. I appreciate you all being here. It's been a great conversation. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to the mods. Jesus, there's even more. Sir, nobody thinks he's a god. You know, maybe not. But you know what? It seems like the people around him think he's something like it. There's Satanists who take children to do rituals and eat them. Yeah, but those Satanists, if they're eating the children and they're not dying, maybe they are people who are a part of a separate species and they worship Satan. They're just not like you and I. They might look like us, or do they look like us? Do we all look alike? We don't. So you might want to rethink that way of thinking. Ahmed, what's up, brother? Oh yeah, gold member. Yeah, gold. No, not gold member. The bald one, Dr. Evil. That's who Klaus Schwab is, Dr. Evil. Let's see here. Everybody knows this video is to make Epstein look good. No, I don't think he was that. I don't think Epstein looks good. I don't think people think smart people are good. People, even Bannon said, excuse me, the way you're so smart, you seem to be the devil. And say Lucifer is very intelligent. That's what Bannon tells them. If somebody's trying to make you look good, why would they compare you to the devil? So that throws that argument out of the window. If you didn't hear that argument, just let me know. I'll bring it back up. It's in this video, and I'll show you. I did a 5-hour long live on this video, 20-something thousand concurrent live viewers. It was one of my biggest episodes ever. It was like a week ago. So if you want to go back through this original video, we did a deep dive, 5 hours long. You're more than welcome. I appreciate all the support. Okay, what is it then? That's what I'm here talking to you for. I need you to help me figure it out. We all need each other to figure it out. Everyone's going to tell us that we're wrong, but if we're wrong, then tell us what it is. But if you can't tell us, if you can't explain it all easily and with 100% certainty, then how do you know we're wrong? You don't know. You're just hoping we're wrong because it scares you. 99% plasma, the universe is alive. What universe? The earth is flat. Well, it's obviously not a ball. Water doesn't stick to balls. The people who talk about the flat earth situation, there's one way to basically prove it all. It's called the curious case of water. See, there's 2 things about water that are always going to be true, no matter what you try to prove. Water must always be contained, and water will always find its level. Also, water doesn't curve. There's no water curving around a ball because something has to hold it in, and it's always going to find its level regardless of the shape of whatever's underneath it. The curious case of water blows up this whole spinning ball, upside down kangaroos, planes that have to constantly nosedive since they're going 400 miles per hour to compensate for the curvature of the earth, which is 1 inch per every 6 miles, according to Google. It's all fake. It's all fake. It's all lies. It's all nonsense. And I wonder what would have happened if one day we all just did like a live stream where we just looked up what's the rate of for the curvature of the earth, and they'll tell you 6 miles, 1 inch. And if you do the calculation of what a jet is flying when it's, traveling, then it would have to be on a constant nosedive because you're going 8 miles every, 50 seconds if they're going 400 miles per hour. So when you do the math, none of it is real. It's all fake. There's no pilot that's ever compensated for the curvature of the earth. It's all a lie. So we can go into that more, but you got to start somewhere. Epstein is what you get to once you've already figured all that out and you've moved past all the bullshit. Once you get past all the fake space stuff and the fake viruses and all the other fraudulent fake shit, then you get to the stuff like Epstein where there are actually real people writing real emails about eating kids. And you're like, wait a minute. All that other fake stuff that I was believing in all these years just to distract me away from the fact that there's another species of human that kind of tell us villagers what to do when they eat our kids. Apparently there's Ghislaine Maxwell's father is a part of this group of a different group of different species of human, and her father owned the company that created all the yearbooks for schools. And what they would do is they would select certain kids in your yearbook, and they would watch the kids as they grow, and they would keep track on certain kids. And then eventually they'll just go abduct those kids and eat them. And the kids will come up missing. No one knows whatever happens to them. But it's not like there was just a kidnapper following this kid for a few days. They were following certain kids that they picked out of these yearbooks. They would be following them for years. They'll be planning on kidnapping your kid at 13 years old ever since they were 5. They were already planning it. They knew what day, they knew where you lived, they knew where you are, and they're able to monitor you based on yearbooks. I had no idea Maxwell's father owned that yearbook company. There's so much going on around us, and if we just going to sit here and be arrogant and pretend that we know everything about the world, and then we're destined to fail. The closest you can get to knowing everything is to admit that you know nothing and that you're willing to learn. Once you think you are just so smart and you're just so omnipotent and all-knowing, you pretty much shut your brain down from being able to absorb or learn anything new, because that would go against you telling yourself that you already know everything. You have to admit that you don't know anything if you want to go forward. Kalantic science is interesting. You've lived in other countries. I have 6 other countries. What is real, bro? I don't know. I don't know what real is. Right now, there's matter inside of my skull, surrounded by fluid and electricity, and it's telling. And there are connections to the sensors called my eyes and my hands. And what I consider real is what I can see and touch, feel, and taste. But I'm limited to that. We all are. And if there's more to the world around us than just our few senses, well, then we're in trouble because we know nothing. We have no idea what's really going on around us, which is probably why we're just still in the village. So you've flown. Absolutely. What about a woman? Well, I'm not black enough to not know what a woman is. You got to ask Ketanji Jackson and the rest of them. They're going to be confused about that. 33,000 feet. Yeah. If you're at 33,000 feet and the earth is curving around you, that means you should be able to launch into space without even adjusting your trajectory. You would just fly into space as the world underneath you curves down. But you don't, because it's fake. Bannon is Q. When did people start listening to Steve Bannon? We've been listening to Steve Bannon for years. I've been listening to him since Trump gave him prominence, 2017, 2018. At first, I thought he was a evil Klans person. And then because I used to be a retard that hung around a bunch of communists and Marxists back in California, I've since abandoned the cult, and I see things for what they really are. And I no longer think that about Bannon. I'm not saying he's a genius. I think he's a warrior. I mean, he was willing to do time for Trump and for his country. I appreciate people that do that. Otherwise, it'll look fake. Epstein is acting in this video. Man, this is a lot of acting. This is a long video. There's no cuts. There's no jump cuts. I mean, this is all straight through, except for when he changed his shirt and his glasses. I can't trust someone who can't trust the evidence of his own eyes. I don't blame you. I'll be honest. I don't trust anybody. Everyone's guilty until proven innocent, in my opinion. These people are brought up in mystery schools from the time that they're small and groomed and put through mind control training that has been declassified by the CIA. That is also true. There's a lot of different things that can be true at the same time. It's just, we have to get out of the school of thought to think that there can only be one thing. There can only be one truth. There can be the world is a multitasker. There's a lot of different things all happening at the same time. We don't have to shut down one thing to push forward another thing. Everything can all be true simultaneously, which is scary. I think you're a curious case. I think so as well. Coriolis effect, Coriolis force. Maybe. Have you ever seen it? Yeah, yes, I have. What is the sun? We don't know. They tell you it's hydrogen explosions, and the only thing I can tell you is that it's not 93 million miles away. It's local. It's local. It's within the dome. It's in the firmament. It's in here with us. Peace be with you, buddy. God bless you as well. Maxwell's father got a presidential ceremony at his burial in Israel. He absolutely did. And the circumstances around his death are extremely mysterious. She is a very mysterious woman herself. Did you know that she was a underwater pilot for like certain types of deep sea discovery missions and all that back in the day? Remember the movies? Remember the TV show Sequest? It was based on a company that Maxwell used to work for when she was a young girl, where they would literally go and explore the ocean because only 1% of it has been explored. And there was a company that she worked for, her family owned, and they basically owned the oceans. And they were dedicated to ocean exploration. And she was a underwater pilot. And no one ever brings it up. Everybody just keeps telling me about Maxwell, sex. It's like, why do you keep trying to distract me? Tell me about the sex stuff, but then tell me everything else too. I want to know everything. I want to know why she was at certain people's weddings, why she was friends with certain people, what kind of family she came from, her early years, her high education. And you mean to tell me she gave it all up to live a life of crime because she's like some kind of sex addict? It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. The highest Mossad and IDF commanders were present at his funeral. Yes, they were. I've read that as well, and that's been confirmed. Would you live in Israel? I would not. I don't believe in their way of life. And I'll be honest, if we are living in the Matrix right now in a simulation, the people that live in Israel are the agents, in my opinion, in the Matrix. They're the agents. And Bibi Netanyahu is Agent Smith himself. Do you believe in the Anunnaki? I do. I believe angels are real. I believe in fallen angels. There's no way you can believe in the things that I'm saying, but not believe in the falling angels and the stories of old, of how we got here and where we came from and what was our purpose and why we're so attracted to gold and all these shiny objects. Like this was all bred into us as a part of our DNA, but we've been led astray. They do something called a reset to humanity every 100 and so years or so. And apparently the reset button is either stuck or broken because we are way further forward than we are supposed to be. Usually human civilizations, as far as we can tell historically, don't make it to advance this far. Technology, microchips, computer, this is stuff that's apparently new to us. We had technology back in the day, but now it's widespread. We had electricity, and they try to tell us that those world fairs were just torches, but we've seen the footage and we've seen those massive buildings, but we also seen the incubation chambers, but they never told you the children that were in those incubation rooms, where did they come from? Thousands of orphans would arrive on these trains, but where are the parents? And that's how they populated other parts of the earth at these world fairs. And, people don't want to talk about it. Those great fires that burned them down and they kind of just reset us. The floods, the mud floods. People bring up the Tartarians, but I mean, there's more to just that as well. Je suis tout. Oui. Mon aussi. I feel this too. Mother tried to tell me, but I didn't listen. At 65, I started learning every day. It's been frightening. It is. Learning new tricks as an old dog is never going to be fun, but it's necessary because life is precious and God gave you the ability to read, to learn, to understand. This is a gift. To turn it away and turn it off and not to use it to its fullest ability would be you spiting God himself. You must live to your full potential, whatever that may be, but definitely don't give up. You have to keep going. You have to keep learning everything that you can. It's chaotic, theatrical, and Trump era logic. If he can be president, literally anything is possible in America. Absolutely. I love the guy, but the fact that The Apprentice, the guy that was on Home Alone, the Playboy, is the president of the United States, anything is possible. Don't ever let anybody tell you just to give up. Keep going. If he can make it, anybody can. And it's not always about money. You can be rich as hell and somebody can still blow your brains out. It's not about money. It's about how you maneuver, how you move, and your decisions every single day. You got to work with what you have. If space is fake, how are things we're watching on video right now? We don't have satellites. There's no such thing as satellites. There are satelloons, high atmospheric balloons that fly around and they'll take pictures, but there's no satellites that you can tap into and zoom in on somebody holding up a sign that says the time of day it is. You've never seen it. They can't turn a satellite and look at the space station or look at another satellite, but apparently there's hundreds of thousands of them, 60-something thousand space debris satellite traveling at 71,000 miles per hour. A space station, because everything in space in our orbit allegedly travels at 71,000 miles per hour. Do you know what that velocity is? That's the velocity of the speed of a bullet. It's 71,000 miles per hour. It's all bullshit. It's all fake. You're not going to be able to dock your space shuttle with a object that is moving at 71,000 miles per hour around the planet. It's all lies. It's all lies. You know what's funny? To keep you from questioning it too much, they invented a movie with a bunch of old black women that they pretended the black women are the ones who came up with all the mathematics. So basically, to question the math and the science behind all their lies would be for you to basically be so racist that you're questioning the black women who gave us the numbers. How often do we see people using them to cover for everything? It's all bullshit. It's all fake. It's all lies. You can't believe any of it. Yep. Let them eat cake. Tip the landlord. Yeah. Someone has seen Truman Show. Zionists or immigrants. The Zionists are the immigrants are the enemies of the Zionists. The immigrants are actually the weapons of the globalists. And the globalists right now are fighting a war with the Zionists, and the Zionists are losing. Wasn't about sex. It was always about drinking the kids' bloods. Absolutely. Apparently, when you scare the kids enough, it's a adrenaline spike in their blood, which creates a compound, depending on how old the child is, and that's what they refer to normally as. There's a formula for it. They call it adrenochrome, but they have different names for it. Me too. I totally believe in the Anunnaki. You should. It's about the chemicals in the blood and the plasma from the babies. Absolutely, it is. Why do you think they take away your placenta when you're born? They don't give it back to you. You have no idea what they're doing with all your genetic material. It's food for certain people, and they sell it. That's why they work on boards like Planned Parenthood, and they don't flinch when they tell you what they do with the dismembered bodies of the aborted children. I have to be honest with you. I used to be one of those guys that if a girl got pregnant, I'm like, shit, get an abortion. I'm thinking it's no big deal until I found out what they used to do to those aborted children. You know, sometimes they would keep the kid and raise it as a pet, and they would eat them later. People always say, where are they getting all these kids from? They're not all just coming from Mexico. A lot of these kids are the remains of aborted children that they were aborted, but there was a live birth, and they incubated them and they raised them. They keep them, but they don't have a birth certificate or social security number. So once they kill them and eat them later, there is no one to miss them, and there's no one that's going to know they're gone. That's the reality of it. The FBI talks about it. Trump talked about it. And after Trump started talking about it, that's when the left went extremely berserk when it came to Trump. 13,500 years, there's a reset. Yeah, but the most recent one was in the 1800s, the mud floods. And that's why you see buildings that are 4 stories tall. We only know them as being 2-story tall. But you see a lot of our buildings here in the United States, they were founded. That means these buildings were already here. We just moved into them, and we, refurbished them, and we kept them around. But these buildings were already in some of these places when our group of humans arrived. When these new villagers explored and moved into these places, a lot of these structures were already here. You see it a lot in Europe as well. Old buildings, they were never built, they were founded. His trapdoor was the ocean. He poured the waste into the ocean. They said that, but they also said he had 50 drums of sulfuric acid. So if you really wanted to get rid of people, you wouldn't need to throw them in the ocean. You would just put them in one of those barrels, and it would disintegrate organic matter. Those looks more. And then also when someone's in the trap door, there's no ladder. There were stairs under that trap door where you can climb out, which if this was trying to dispose of people, you wouldn't need a ladder. So it could have been for something else. We don't know. And honestly, we don't even know what's under We don't even know how deep down that facility on Epstein Island goes. All we see is there's different buildings on the surface, but apparently everything is connected by a labyrinth of tunnels and passages and labs and buildings underneath basically the compounds, the multiple compounds on the surface. We don't know. No idea. They won't let us go there. Titaria was a wireless city. Absolutely. And we've seen the evidence of it. This was before CGI existed. We were looking at these images. Africa has gold. Everywhere has gold. A phone you can take the battery out of would be nice, but we don't have those anymore. You have to get off technology a good 2 weeks. I agree. Hey, 2Love29, what's up? Good to see you. And he was Sex in the City too. Yeah, Trump was. You know, that's what I say. Anybody can become, you know, the thing is this. You don't have to be super smart to be the president. You just got to be super popular. That's what Epstein was talking about. He said, you don't got to be a genius to be a leader of a country. It doesn't mean you're smart. It just means you're good at getting people to like you. My whole life, I've never been that good at getting people to like me. People tolerate me because I'm beneficial to know me. But like is a strong word. I wouldn't say everybody necessarily just likes me. Some people are good at that. I'm not. Trump is. So I'm not winning any popularity contests, especially with my form of speech. Yeah, some of you guys might like me. You subscribe to the channel. You're watching me. We talk. We have these conversations. Everyone's not going to feel the same. So it just depends on the individual. Where did you learn this? Over time, trial and error, experience, and research. Our moon is a satellite. We don't know what our moon is. We just know that it radiates a temperature of about 800 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's its own light source, which is why it glows at night. And you can never land on the moon because the surface would melt any vehicle that you would land there. Also, it's not like you're going to be able to stick to it. It's built into the wall of wherever we're at. So you'd have to hang on it like you're hanging on a wall. So it's not possible, but it is watching us, whatever it is. Look at Erica Kirk. She is a honeypot. Absolutely, she's a honeypot. She's a Mossad agent, and she was Kirk's handler. Once they took her out of Romania, she did such a good job that they reassigned her. And that's why, and now that the Charlie Kirk is gone, she's been reassigned. That's why she doesn't even have the kids anymore, because that was a job. She's on to the next operation. Her next job was supposed to be to become the next First Lady of the United States of America by attaching herself to J.D. Vance. Because we know too much about her and women see through her, even though men fall for her bullshit, now we know too much about her, and that whole next First Lady, Erica Kirk Vance, that whole agenda is pretty much shot. So they're going to have to put someone else there. But Erica Kirk is pretty much cooked in the public eye. Nobody trusts her because they see through her. She's not a genuine person. And she's been playing Charlie since day one. I have the videos from when they were talking, doing an interview, and she's just faking it. There's no way women that have been with their boyfriend or fiance for 2-3 years act like that, or, I can't even look at you. I'm going to pass out. Women who are really in relationships, they hate the men that they're with. I don't care if I might have a girlfriend by choice. Doesn't mean she likes me. She might love me, but women don't really like us. They don't like their men, especially when they see us every day. They end up hating the way you breathe. It's just a part of the dynamic. You guys might be in love, but you might not, but you might be sick of each other. And then it comes back around eventually, and you get old, and then you get tired of running away from each other. It's kind of a dance. People don't realize it because everything moves so much faster in this day and age because we have social media. We're looking for instant gratification. But our grandparents understood what I'm saying, even if we don't. That's why I can't trust anyone who believes what he sees. I agree. The moon does exist. I never said it didn't. It's alive. All of America is overlooking what's in plain sight. I agree. They did, all of your study, Black women did a lot of telecommunications. They don't take that away from Black women. They did not do a lot of telecommunications, and it was all bullshit. None of it's true. It's as realistic as when they put women on the Avengers movies, and they're jumping on men my size, twisting our arms and doing flips in elevators and kicking us in the chest and we die. And you're the size of Scarlett Johansson, a little small 5'2", 115 woman. Here's this dog walking a guy my size. Yeah. This is realistic. The black women in telecommunications is just as realistic as that. Cheers. Good luck in the street fight. Super Bowl, superb owl. Yeah. And we all know what the owl means. You know, that's one of those gods they worship in child sacrifices and kids too. That's why Drake choosing that as his logo was just so odd too. The world is evil, yeah, but it's the only one we have. So it's right in our face. You're right. They take your organs too. Excuse me. Absolutely. They do. Now they try to grow organs in labs with humanoids, but the blood, they said, doesn't taste the same. They try to create alternatives where they don't have to actually eat real humans. But the alternative they're creating is like these human animal hybrids, but the organs and the blood taste funny. And they're having a reaction to it because this other species is only supposed to eat humans, not fake GMO humans, but actual humans that were born from parents, not grown in a lab. So even this other species of humans that eat humans, even they don't like GMOs. Even their bodies are having a bad reaction to GMOs. But they did try to come up with lab-grown animals that they can eat in lieu of humans in case there was ever an issue like it is right now where too much disclosure means we find out that they exist. And make no mistake about it, that's what's happening right now with this conversation. I'm going through all the comments. I want to read through them all, but I want to clip this video. I got to make like 100 different clips of this and segment out the different parts of this conversation and post them. So if you can, follow the channel on YouTube. We're live right now, but I'm going to clip all this up and I'm going to post the different segments so we can go back to the different points and things we talked about. Remember, Epstein bought the ranch in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so that he could recruit all the scientists from the Manhattan Project. Do you remember? Let me tell you how important the Manhattan Project was. Hey, Arthur, do me a favor. Give us a summary of the Manhattan Project and the disclosed and anything you can find undisclosed about the Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project was a top-secret US-led effort during World War II to develop the first nuclear weapons. It ran from 1939 to 1946, involving thousands of scientists across multiple sites, including Los Alamos. The project culminated in the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. As for undisclosed aspects, most historical data is now declassified. Some details of operational decisions and specific internal deliberations may remain classified, but no credible major undisclosed technology exists. The science behind nuclear fission is well understood today.
Appreciate it, Arthur. So thousands of scientists that were going to be unemployed, Epstein hired them to come work on his ranch to explore unknown, never tested research into technology that could use mathematics and high energy physics to predict the future using, basically it was developed from genetic algorithms, which led from what I can discern, it led to looking glass technology because they were looking to be able to see the future using mathematics to predict the markets in the stock market. But they were able to view more than that. And that's why Epstein, when he almost said it, he stopped himself. In this whole interview, there was never a point where he was about to say something. He reversed it. He doesn't have a history of stuttering or saying things incorrectly. So when he stopped himself, it stood out to me. He caught himself saying we were able to see the few, and then he drew it back and said predict and this. So they don't want you to know that they have this information. And that's why he never told you what was the outcome of his experiments in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You got to think about how much money it costs paying these scientists, buying that facility, building a silo and making it into a bunch of labs and building houses. And this went on for over 15 years in Santa Fe, New Mexico. How much did this cost? And how much money did this man have in 1993 where he could afford all of this? And this was being self-funded. And no one's asking any of these questions. Obviously, this research yielded some results, which created some money. But maybe they were able to see the markets, but they were able to see way more than just that. Way more. And then they said that he was in jail when the markets crashed. So what that means is that he didn't have access to the technology, because apparently Looking Glass can only see out 1 or 2 weeks into the future. You can't see out that far, too many variables, according to what they've said about it. This is like tons and tons of comments. Does she have kids too? Erica Kirk, yes. She came out too fast. I agree. Look, I'll be back on in about 20 minutes. I'm going to go get some more water. We're going to finish. We're going to go into some other conversations, but we're going to come back to this one. This was an extremely important conversation. I'm going to clip it up. I'm going to use Opus Clips. Not that I'm being paid to advertise for them. I already have another couple of sponsors. Shout out to our sponsor, cosigning.com, for sponsoring this video. If you're looking for an apartment, if you don't have a friend or a family member willing to be your cosigner, reach out to cosigning.com. They'll match you with someone today. I appreciate our sponsors. I'm happy to do ad reads. Thank you very much. I'll be back on in about 20 minutes. Remember, America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.